Hi, my name is Brian Kinnee, and today I'm going to be presenting on our paper, Autospeculation, reflecting on the intimate and imaginative capacities of data analysis. Given decades of human-computer interaction research focused on scientific empiricism, it can be hard for the field to acknowledge that data analysis is both an emotional and speculative process. But what does it mean for this process of data analysis to embrace its situated and speculative nature? In this paper, we explore this possibility by building on decades of HCI mixed methods that root data analysis in design. Drawing on an autoethnographic design inquiry, we examine how data analysis can work as an implicating process, one that is not only critically grounded in a designer's own situation, but also offers modes of imagining the world otherwise. In this analysis, we find that autobiographical design can help scholars to respond to current critiques of speculative design by grounding and rendering more personal certain kinds of speculation, opening a space for diverse voices to emerge. With data in our hands, we are not only learning about ourselves and the world, but also the potential for it to be different. But what does it mean for this process of data analysis to embrace its situated and speculative nature? What might it look like to consider data analysis a particular process of design, one that is not only critically grounded in a designer's own situation, but also offers modes of imagining the world otherwise? This paper explores this potential by tracing our development of a blended process of speculative and autobiographical design, an approach we call autospeculation. By autospeculation, we refer to a process of closely analyzing one's own practice that offers tools for imagining that situation otherwise. To chart this development, we revisit an autoethnographic design inquiry in which we speculated with the voice assistant data archive of Kinnee during a period of personal relationship breakup. In this work, we examine how autospeculation scaffolds both data analysis and design, pointing to important considerations for positionality, slowness, and pause. Our work builds on a range of speculative design and autobiographical design studies that have provided HCI scholars with frameworks for investigating what might be designed and how users of a system might design the system to adapt to their own particular needs through self-usage. This work frames researcher or designer's own experiences as embodied in the design of a system and its exploration. That is, as the researcher builds the system, they see it themselves, learn about the design space, and evaluate and iterate the design based on their own experiences. In this paper, we reflect on the ways autobiographical design and autospeculation allowed us to reimagine data practices and navigate important critiques of speculative design. To ground our analysis, we start with background works from scholars who have carefully pointed to the drawbacks of speculative design. We also offer theoretical groundings for autobiographical design and its current intersections with HCI speculative design and design research. Our analysis focuses on four main reorientations through autospeculation: taking from within, hyperlocal speculation, committing to slowness and depth, and near-past intimacies. Weaving across these threads, we point to two generative tensions for future work: risks of revisiting and polyvocality. Our introduction of autospeculation offers two main contributions to HCI literature on design and data analysis. First, we expand a growing set of methods for critically analyzing data by using speculative encounters to inspire new forms of creative engagement with personal data. Second, we advance conversations on speculative design methods and their risks by integrating first-person approaches that depend and enrich people's intimate relationships to data practice. This deepened intimacy highlights the forms of emotional labor, affective positioning, and uneven power dynamics wrapped up with personal data, illustrating the risks of highlighting an already dominant perspective. In the paper, we provide an overview of the traditions of speculative design and first-person research in HCI and design, specifically autoethnography and autobiographical design. In an effort to move away from analyzing interactions and towards analyzing relations, we revisit speculation to highlight its potential as a tool for committing to slowness and representing the particulars of people's lived experiences through longitudinal inquiries about social relations and personal data. Moreover, in the paper, we examine how autobiographical design could serve as a method to respond to current critiques of speculative design, with a particular attention to its role during the data analysis process. We propose that autobiographical design has the capacity to ground and render more personal certain kinds of speculations, opening a space for diverse voices to emerge. In the paper, we described how three registers of analytical work inform our study: solo analysis, autospeculation, and meta-analysis. By register, we refer to the particular range of interpretive work that we took up across the program. Much like on a musical instrument, we use this term to emphasize how our relationship to data shift across our study, rather than settle at discrete levels, phases, or types of analysis. While drawing on different registers, this paper reports on our meta-analysis, a process of looking back on our techniques of auto-speculation in the humanistic HCI tradition of close reading, exploring their relationship to more established approaches such as speculative and autobiographical design. In the paper, we outline the first two registers of analytic work that informed this inquiry before diving into the third register of analysis. Our study focuses on the techniques we use to reflect on Kinnee's experience using a voice assistant in their queer home during a breakup. Blending critical reflections with experiments on voice assistant data, we find that our approach urges a consideration of several important themes: the potential of taking from within our own data streams, the significance of the hyperlocal speculation, commitments to slowness and depth, and the intimacies involved in shifting from near past to near futures. In the paper, we elaborate on each of these analytic aspects of our method and explore their implications for HCI scholarship on first-person methods and speculation. In this presentation, we will focus on hyperlocal speculation, the specificity of our situations, and location and time in which we conducted our original analysis invited us to take a position, implicating ourselves in the analytic process. For example, the background noise in a recording serves as a starting point that triggers memory, entering a world that Kinnee is familiar with, but also an emotional opening to multiple layers of mourning related to the breakup. By working directly with Kinnee's data, we offer an alternative to the common assumption of a neutral world, or neutral perspective, often found in speculative design. In contrast, our process emphasizes the hyperlocality and ultra-precise nature of speculation. In our process of accessing, reading, listening to, remixing, and interpreting Kinnee's voice assistant data, we ground the speculation. The reclaiming and appropriation of the specific data set is in itself an act of speculation. What do these sonic records mean for those generating them, in this case Kinnee? What would a world be like if this data belonged to the producers of the data? Or, more precisely, how much more meaning does this data have for Kinnee when reflecting on their own home life and that unique period in their relationship? In our project, we work directly with the capitalist world of Amazon's data, data centers, data processes, and interfaces. We brushed up against the algorithms and natural language processing systems that Amazon uses for the purposes of, quote, understanding the users better in order to sell more. We carved a space between the capitalist machine in which the data was captured and archived and the hyperlocal home, experience, and relationships of Kinnee. Our analysis so far explores Kinnee's experience studying and speculating with their own data, an approach that we have called autospeculation. Within Kinnee's experiments, autospeculation emerges as a process of self-reflection that offers handholds for imagining a world otherwise, or a situation otherwise. At first blush, our process seems to share a reflective sensibility with existing approaches such as self-tracking or critical technical practice. However, our approach represents a reorientation of purpose. Rather than use self-tracking devices to know or change ourselves, our process deploys other tracking devices to reimagine our relationships with technology. This speculative angle involves both the creative reuse of tracking methods as well as the tools themselves. In this sense, our work pushes on a need for more methodological handles on what it means to take part in critical technical practice, a form of reflection and accountability. In addition to offering a case study of this process and outlining core tenets of the work, we see differences in emphasis, positioning the work of reimagining through self-discovery as a foundational practice of computational design. In closing, we expand on the opportunities and dangers of further examining two protective tensions: risks of revisiting and polyvocality. As HCI and design communities embark on more first-person research projects, and as researchers might be interested in using auto-speculation or expanding on our method, we feel a responsibility in sharing these tensions and raising questions. While in our previous paper, we share more details regarding the specific tactics for conducting auto-speculation. In this paper, we emphasize lessons from our meta-analysis. With these lessons, we describe auto-speculation less in terms of recipe or step-by-step tutorial, and more as a set of critical considerations and frictions.